Cypher.
he wasn't he a comedian?
Hey, welcome to the channel.
You have an interesting name. It's intriguing to me. What's the origins of your YouTube channel name?
Well, I guess it goes back to my in-game handle, which is Steel Reserve, and I've had that since college. It was Steel Reserve, so it turned into Steelcast when I decided to do YouTube, and this was my first foray into YouTube was with World of Warships, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was fun. Not quite a first-person shooter, but it kind of is. It was like this own unique thing. So I started Steelcast27. The 27 comes from it was my number in college when I played baseball,
Oh, okay. Cool. That's
basically.
some history there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw like a video of yours that was it's really focused on telemetry, G forces and things. You can track all that with like sensors in real vehicles. How important do you think it is to a sim racer just getting into this to know about that kind of stuff?
Not an entry, not at all. It's one of those things where you have to have caught a certain you have to scratch an itch at first. And what it did for me was I don't know, I guess if you get into any kind of endeavor, you want to make sure that your equipment's not going to fail you, right? I guess it would be the same thing with sim racing for me. Anytime I thought that I'm driving the car and the car didn't feel right, I always wanted to put myself in the best position. So I would try to look into how to set up the cars and try to learn them piecemeal, just little by little. And initially, I had no idea what I was doing with cars. And I looked at spring rates, the ride heights, cambers, caster, slow speed dampers, high speed dampers, and that's just 1/3 of one 3 tap screen. And I remember distinctly thinking, I don't need to know this number mumbo jumbo. Just get me in the car. What is that? Yeah, exactly. So, but when you get that feeling that there is something that you can do to help improve, because I wanted to learn like what my true capability is with the driver without feeling like I wanted to feel comfortable in the car. So that started me down a very obsessive path of learning car mechanics, and the primary way that I did that was by learning telemetry and using that telemetry tool. RST, I owe a lot to the creators of it, and it lit a fire. I just can't describe it. And this is well before I had any intention of doing YouTube videos. And there's only so many times you can go around like trying to chase the fastest guys in the game. At some point you have to do something. So I became kind of hooked to just not only getting myself in the cars and doing the telemetry at the same time. Turned out I was actually practicing too. So I'm learning car mechanics, learning how to read telemetry, learning what changes you could make in a setup on the setup screen that would actually help certain behaviors in the car, learning the force feedback, the feel of the car on entry, corner, and mid corner and exit, and knowing what components to change to improve that. It was just mind blowing for me. So I just delved right into it, and then yeah, that's sort of started this whole project, I guess you could say. That's where it originated from.
I also saw a video of yours. You had a couple tutorials that you posted, overtaking, and I think one was drafting. Is it kind of similar to what you said with the telemetry? Like you got to get to a certain point in your understanding, your skill set. Do you think you should introduce that to a newer racer, like those kind of techniques?
Any sim racer, anybody that's going to be racing against people,
Yeah,
you should take racecraft into account. And you're
like
referring to,
immediately.
yeah, it's a good habit to start. That series is actually relatively new. I just started doing those a couple of weeks ago. I call them the anatomy of the overtake. It's not necessarily oriented to just overtaking. It's going to deal with sort of racecraft, creating overtake opportunities as opposed to just I'm gonna dive on the inside in this corner.
Yeah,
There's
and
more
hope it
to
works
it than
out.
that. Yeah, and what leads to great, clean side by side races, or racing, and I know a lot of people that have been doing this for a long time. The thing that they enjoy most about sim racing isn't the wins, isn't the podiums. It's talking with a guy in your league after a race where you've had like a side by side over under kind of battle, passing on the straight, then you overtake him and he overcooks a corner and you go on the inside, like, and then you want to high five that guy. And I had experiences like that when I was in the league with a bunch of Australian guys, and I wanted a high five a guy like 15,000 miles away or whatever,
Yeah.
because and it was for fifth place. Like no one cares.
Yeah.
Like no, there's no newspaper articles, but he was so jazzed. I was so jazzed. We were talking about it in a Discord. It was great. And those are the moments that you get in sim racing that I think is really hard to find elsewhere. You recognize good racing, and I have a tendency to overanalyze things. So so that's where that comes from, and just wanting to show that there's mental things going on that create opportunities for yourself that can lead to success on track besides just going for it all the time, like hyper aggressive driving. So
My dad would always explain. He was a race photographer for many years, and he always would tell me the stories about, it's cool to see, first, second place and all that stuff, podium and stuff, but he always said the most interesting racing was in the middle of the pack and at the end of the pack, like where people are really fighting for those positions, So
yeah,
I definitely, you might not like be what you said, like be on any newspaper articles, but, you're having like a fucking good time, So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's all we're looking for.
Yeah. I had this written down because I wanted to. I don't really know what it is, and I'd like you to explain it. I guess. I read your channel description. It was really brief, but it was, and I didn't quite know what to make of it. It states, you're a Flashpoint esports engineer.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Flashpoint esports race engineer.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how every racing team has engineers, and then they tell the drivers what to do.
Oh.
That's me.
Okay. So you're making the calls and like
No. It's a lot less interesting than that. I basically make builds for Flashpoint esports motorsports.
So you're implementing your knowledge of telemetry and
Yep. I make their race setups. I'll test on simulated conditions that the race is going to be at. So if it's rainy or whatever temperature, whatever fuel you need in the car, I'll give them insights as to race strategy and put them on the front foot when they hit the track. These guys on these teams, they're very, very fast. They overdrive the cars, and that occurs in real life. In AMS2, it features this a dynamic tire model that takes into effect overdriving them, and it can lead you into trouble. It's a part of the set of tire model, and if you don't keep your car underneath you, you're not going to have. You all right, man?
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, okay, I'm good. Sorry. What excites you most about sim racing?
It's the side by side action. If you're talking about in the seat when you're behind the wheel,
Okay.
that side by side is what you're seeking. When I'm by myself testing, it's an aha moment.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So I was preparing a race build for the Lotus 79, which is the ground effects F1 car in AMS2. Mario Andretti won the F1 World Championship in that car. We were doing a build for Hockenheim, I think it was 77, which is a really high speed track. Perfect for that car, at least the first couple of sectors. But when you get out of the first really long straightaway, there's a really hard high speed right hand corner at Hockenheim 77, and it's bumpy. And so the cars would get skittish around there. And I remember working on it with a friend of mine. His name's Peter Stefani, sort of a mentor of mine in the telemetry software. And we were working on that car together, just trying to figure out what the heck was going on with it. And we found out that it was a ride height issue. It sounds like it's easy. It would be like that. You can just, it's a ride height issue. We had to figure out whether or not it was the front of the car that was bouncing off the ground or the rear of the car. We also had to do some damping adjustments to make sure that the car went over that sector without bottoming out, which was causing a lot of the squirreliness. when we figured that out, and we got everything tuned, not just ride height, but damping and everything, we kind of tuned the car just for that one corner. And you could take that thing flat out now. Like other people will be backing off, and the Flashpoint Esports guys can flat out take it. Able to just keep that pedal in and not be feeling weird. I mean, it's still bouncing because it's,
Yeah, it's
you're going over
bumpy. Yeah,
bounces and you're
yeah.
going almost 200 miles an hour, but not getting that wobble, and backing off,
Having to lose
and
traction and things. Yeah.
exactly. And then I knew it was a game changer.
Do you have like a structured, specific process that you do each time to kind of work out all the kinks or all the bugs of each setup?
You start seeing things that are common themes
Hmm.
in the setup philosophy. So Ray's philosophy of setups, you start seeing that copied on all the cars. Click this, click this, click this, click this, click this, and then save it. And that would be what my starter build would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Your
But because
baseline.
I'm
Yeah.
making a video, I have to drive the default.
Okay.
And I start tinkering, tinkering, tinkering. And then I put in some hot laps with my build, and then I do a hot laps with the default build for the video.
Yeah.
So I wanted something to be fair and square. I'm really pushing these cars. They're like semi hot lap. Then when you're looking at telemetry, there's a certain workflow that's recommended. It depends on the car, if it's a GT versus an aero car. But typically the first thing you do is brakes. You got to figure out your brakes. The next thing is camber pressure tires. That's a big one off the bat, and I usually do that several rounds. So you'd camber pressure in the beginning, middle, and end. If I wanted to do a regimented structure, nowadays I'm sort of just like clicking it here, clicking it there, playing a little jazz, but um, do a little differential work. I think the differential is a really huge factor in mid-car rotation and balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't have it set right, then it can really just mess up your thinking about the balance of the car. And then once you have everything neutralized, then you work on the balance of the car. And then if it's an aero car, you work on the aero package, make sure the ride height and everything is right, and you get a good balance front and back, or front and rear, so that you can take the corners the way you want them. So yeah, there is a workflow to it.
Okay.
It's I've never really written it down like a structured
Yeah.
thing. I've kind of created my own system that's sort of off camera, I guess you could say.
Okay. I'm one of those guys that just like, I'll get it in the car, and if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I don't really mess with it too much. I'll mess with like some of the gear ratios and stuff like that occasionally. I'll mess with camber a little bit, and ride height, the basic stuff, but I don't really get too deep into it. But how much on average would you say you could gain, per lap in terms of from a stock setup to, a specified setup that's custom tuned for the location?
I've had builds that have been multiple seconds faster.
Oh,
I've had
wow.
builds that are,
Per lap, you're saying?
yeah, and I've had
Wow.
builds that are, just several tenths faster.
Yeah. Okay.
It really depends on the car. It
Yeah.
depends on the track. I test at Imola, and in AMS2 they have a shortened version of Silverstone called Silverstone International, which I guess is mostly for like club level racing.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
it sort of cuts Silverstone in half,
Mhm.
and you just sort of have like Stowe, and like you have Abbey, and then it goes into a little chicane.
Okay.
But I use that. It's only a 1 minute track.
Okay.
Um, certain cars will be great there, but not in another track, and that's why I try to test on several tracks. Imola is usually a good, well-rounded track, but it really depends. And the one misconception, I think it's interesting that you asked that question, because the one big misconception that it kind of bugs me, but I always try to bring it up when I have a chance, is people think that a setup is making you faster.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's allowing you to do what you need to do.
You're
Yeah.
already faster.
Yeah.
It's making you more comfortable.
Yeah.
So it's making the driver more comfortable to push the envelope a little bit farther. Now, there are certain things that, maximizing grip in certain areas, that can happen. But, honestly, right now for most sim racers, it's just getting used to the track and getting used to the car control and getting comfortable. Where do I need to brake? Okay, here, and then how fast can I be going through this corner? That's way more important. And you don't need the car to be wobbling on you mid corner when you're trying to figure out how fast to take a corner. That's basically that'll get you 80%. And then after that, you know, maybe you can start going for that 20%, setup difference to help you get to the next level. But yeah, most of it's just getting comfortable. That's the name of the game.
So you mentioned Imola. Am I pronouncing that right? Imola?
Imola, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you mentioned that that was a good track to test at. What specifically about that track makes it good for testing?
Imola has a good mix of chicanes, tight corners, heavy acceleration, hard braking, um, lateral load, deceleration under braking and you're turning under braking. So the last couple corners before you get into the Ravazza turns, before the front straight, you have to, depending on the car, you might have to brake before, like there's a crest in the hill and you have to kind of make a little right hand, and then you might be braking over the crest of that hill. Cars do not like to brake when they're turning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you got to, you can make that a little bit easier on yourself. So there's a lot of interesting things that Imola does. It has tons of curbs, so you can figure out how well a car does over curbs there. Um, if they had Barcelona, I think I would probably use that as my primary test track. And the reason being is because that's, F1 used to test there too. And the reason why they tested there is basically because of, what is it, turn one to turn three. Turn three is that sweeping right hander. I don't know if you're familiar with Barcelona. Real long right hand, high speed. Those type of corners you use to balance the stiffness of the car. So if you or your aero package too, you could balance your aero package over those long, high-speed corners, and that's why I use Silverstone International to do that.
You might have already answered this question. I might not have been paying the best attention, but why do you choose a AMS2 over, like, say, a Assetto Corsa? Or
When I went into YouTube, I didn't realize something about the sim racing community, and that's why I kind of approached it like World of Warships. I thought people just played the game and enjoyed the game. And I went into YouTube really kind of naive to the fact that there's this inner genre turmoil going on about which game you play. And I've learned that that is really a contentious thing, almost to an unnerving degree for me. It was quite shocking. So my intention going into playing AMS2 was my own choices based on where I was when I made the decisions to do it. And it was partly because at the point I didn't know how much time I was going to be spending in sim racing. When I was out there to choose game, which game am I going to devote my time? I have two young boys under the age of 4.
that's
Most
a
of the time I
handful.
spend,
Yeah.
yeah, and most of the time I spend in the driving is between midnight and 2 to 3 a.m.
Oh, brutal.
So I'm sacrificing sleep to do it. So, and I knew that like I couldn't go into a real heavy, like I can't do iRacing. I can't I don't even know if I'll be playing. Why would I be paying a subscription? So iRacing's out. Then there was AMS2. I did a lot of research about them, and there was a lineage with Project Cars 2, which I had played before. It had good VR, which I wanted to try VR. There was a lot of little personal reasons why I chose to play the game, and I just thought it really kind of hooked me early on. But there was a gap when I started playing it, and then I stopped playing it. I started playing Project Cars 2 again. I started playing ACC, but I have never done the whole circle of sim racing games. So I would never you know tell somebody, hey, I think AMS2 is the best. I'll never say that. What
They
I'll
all have
say
their
is I
flaws. Yeah.
I find the AMS2 to hit or check every box that I want it to hit, and part of it is that what I was mentioning before was the straightforward telemetry work and the car mechanics work. Um, Beautiful game in that regard, and that's what I was exactly what I was looking for in a telemetry game. That was a huge part of it, actually. And the thing about that in particular was that, and Amos 2 is beautiful in this regard. Anything that you could find about real life racing, like as far as car mechanics, how a four-way damper works, the changes that you would make and how to change the behavior of a car. It's reflected in the game.
I don't even know what a
And
four-way damper is. I don't think I've ever heard that before. A four-way damper. Because
yeah,
I have adjustable dampers on both my cars, but it's just softer or hard. Like a.
yeah,
Anyway, sorry
yeah.
to interrupt.
A four-way damper is like a modern racing damper. It controls not only just the low speed damping of
Okay,
the
that's what you're
car,
talking about. Okay,
but also the high speed damping, so bumps. But yeah, so
yeah, sorry.
you're like me and you're obsessed about a damper and learning how a damper works, which is me about a year and a half ago, and I would spend weeks just pulling stuff off the internet, reading as much as I could about not only just how a damper works, but how to apply it to a race car, and then just spending months just testing cars and trying different damper settings and checking the behaviors and trying to find out how the car responds. Pretty soon I figured out AMS2 is like right on the money with that. Like there's no mystery, there's no gimmick, there's no games. You change the spring rate in a real race car, these guys, that's what they're saying, this is how the car is going to behave. You change the spring rate in a car in AMS2, it's going to behave pretty similar, if not the same way. So, telemetry and that go hand in hand. That's beautiful for me because that's what my interest was. Yeah.
Does your experimental tendencies, did it start because of sim racing, or have you always like had this sort of approach to learning and
I am by nature a prep first kind of guy. Yeah, I'm very, very calculated. I'm not a risk taker. I like knowing what's going to go on in a situation before the situation happens as best as possible. And I guess it makes sense that I would like to prep a car as best as I possibly can before I take it into a competitive situation.
is the experimental aspect of racing what attracted you to sim racing? Just having the ability to squeeze extra out of the car by tweaking it, or
No, I didn't. I learned that afterwards.
okay,
Yeah, I
yeah,
learned. I learned that was an interest of mine after I started sim racing. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because I mean, you seem like the type of guy that just like you crave knowledge,
Yeah, I guess if
yeah.
you have to. The thing I like to tell people in like my Discord or people that are commenting on videos and things is, this isn't inaccessible to you. Like I'm not extraordinarily smart. I don't have any, degrees on the wall that say I'm a race engineer. I just devoted the time and energy to do it. And I know there's guys that support me in the channel that have really stuck with it. And now they're the ones writing all of these long descriptions of how, a Formula Classic Gen 3, hey Luke, is, he's writing a
Did you actually
long,
wave to someone just then?
I think so. I don't know if you could see me, but yeah, I did. But he wrote this long thing, and I was just like, "Wow, dude!" And before when he started watching the channel, he had no idea what he was doing, and that was me a year and a half ago. So it's not. It's just like it's if you want to devote the energy to something and you have a passion for it,
Yeah.
and it just so happens to deal with car mechanics and getting better as a race car driver, then yeah, that's all it's about.
Yeah, it's cool that you're applying your knowledge and you're helping others figure out the same shit. It's really cool. You mentioned VR. How important do you think VR is to the future of sim racing?
I think it's never going away. Yeah, I think it's going to have a market share. I know the next game that I'm going to play after AMS2's gone through its life cycle is going to have VR. I only drive in VR.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the whole trips. I've never done triples. I've only raced with a single screen, like right next to my nose. That was, and
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, well, VR seemed to be a logical next step. I like the idea of being able to look and see an apex,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not having like, if you drive some of the cars in these games, like you can't see out of them.
I
It's like
know.
they
Yeah.
have
It's like the harshest A pillars ever. Yeah.
yeah, and they're right in that where you need to be turning, and
Yeah.
it's like, how do these guys do it? And you can't always have like the perfect seat position,
You
You
have to make
gotta
compromises every
figure it
time.
out.
Yeah.
So one of the things I did when I did play with the screen, with the single in AMS2 and Project Cars 2, I did F1, 2017 through 2019. Was I changed the field of view really far forward. So like I'm basically like imagine driving with your chin on the dashboard, so I could see out the front. I mean, that's all I wanted to do was see, and the
That
VR
changes
gave it
how
to
the
me.
car handles though, in relation to what you can see. And
Does it?
yeah, the field of vision, like yeah, it really messes with people. Like when you have it too far back, and it's almost like a warped effect, and it kind of
Hmm.
adds too much speed, and then you push it too far forward, and then it changes the handling of the vehicle, or how you perceive it handles. Not
Really?
it doesn't change it. It can also affect your ability to judge how close things are to the sides of your vehicle. Unfortunately, is one of the
Ah, okay.
yeah
Yeah, that makes sense because you're trying to
yeah
warp us. I've seen pictures online. It's like you're trying to
yeah
drive through a scope, you
yeah
know?
yeah. I do the same thing, by the way, to reinforce what you're saying. I move it all the way forward, not only so I could see better, but also so I don't get a warped perception of speed, because
Hmm.
that can affect your driving too. Like you can feel like, oh, I'm going too fast for this area, but you're actually not going too fast. It's because
Right.
the field of vision is distorted. But
Yeah. I have to ask you a question. Have you ever had that tape measure on your nose and trying to like touch the screen with a tape measure?
no, is that a thing
You never
or
did that for
no?
field of view? You have to
No,
figure out the distance between you and the screen.
no, I didn't.
That's imagine me with a tape measure with my nose like trying to reach out to the screen. That
Yeah.
was me, yeah, when I
Oh
tried.
man, you
I
got
was
all
trying
into
to.
it.
I don't have a big screen
Yeah, yeah,
here, so
yeah,
it's like I had to maximize it. But all I wanted to see was to see. VR blew my mind
yeah,
in that regard.
yeah.
And then once I did some research about how to get the sharpness and the anti-aliasing, I only have a CV1.
Okay.
It's not the top level. I mean, that's probably one of the next things I'll go for. But um,
I'd say wait on
once
that. Some
you
new,
think,
yeah, new headsets are coming out, and they're going to be mind blowing. So yeah,
really,
yeah,
if VR is here to stay, I think any game that is sim racing oriented, you wouldn't want to go into it saying that 25% of the market share, we're just not going to serve them. You know, they're always going to have some VR, like, oh, we have VR, but just like nowadays, it's who's got it the best, who does the best job with it. But I think if they devote more resources to it, and it's always going to be there for sure.
yeah. And if they devote more resources to it, it'll grow quicker. You know,
Yeah,
because people will see like, wait, this is all available to me, and I can get a headset and experience all this. It's
yeah,
it's almost like an entirely different version of the game when you play it in VR. It's yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with track IR or tracker?
No, I've heard of it and I've seen people using it. I heard it also has you have a learning curve. Like if you, because I've also played, War Thunder has um, it has an airplane component. So Track IR would be able to you could look around without using the keyboards and stuff, and that has a practical application for like flight simulators and stuff like that. So I've seen it in several contexts, but I've never really implemented it.
Okay, yeah. A lot of people are saying it's kind of like the equivalent of VR to triple screen users and single screen users, and
Hmm.
I see the practicality, and it
Yeah,
allows you to actually look around a bit, but it's a bit unnatural because you're turning your head and everything's moving rather than you just turning your head and everything's stationary.
yeah.
So it's a bit disorienting. I don't have any experience with it, but I researched it heavily. It does make recording content easier to do it on a single screen than in VR because there's a lot of complications that come with that. But
Yeah, I've run into some complications. My computer, I had to replace it because although it ran the game fine, it ran VR fine, I couldn't record live. I was barely cutting it with
it's
the VR
taxing.
headset. Yeah, it was just taxing the system too much. And for up until about, since I got this computer, I had done virtually no live drive. So have the video camera at the bottom right hand of the screen. I'm driving and talking. I've always had to record, drive, record, replay, audio voiceover. It's always in stages. And now with this new system, I'm really excited because I'll be able to cut some time out. Some of the videos that I make, my flagship video, which is the custom default series, which is where I just basically make a new build for each of the cars in AMS2. That's going to stay the same. It's going to feature a track replay and a voiceover. And
People like to see
but
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think I think so. It's one of the more popular videos, to be honest. It started off from really humble origins. It was just, I think my first video was just, I think I made so many mistakes with that one. It was basically me driving around. Uh, it was just trackside mode. I think it wasn't even cockpit mode, and I had, God forbid, I had a musical soundtrack in the background.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that was like a sim racing faux pas.
Yeah. Some people is like purists. They want to hear the
They're
engine and
like,
that's it. Yeah.
no, no music in racing, and I'm like, okay, but I didn't have any voiceover. The my novel contribution was putting in like some gifs, just throwing in some gifs on there, and then I gave everybody a setup at the end, and that was how I thought the channel was going to go. Almost a year later, here I am with voiceovers and live drives and VR and brand new computers and podcasts and esports teams. It's crazy.
A lot of people don't realize the value for content creators specifically, a value of saving time during editing and capturing, because it takes up a large portion of your day. So in anything that can cut like rendering times or editing times, or like I
Yeah,
said, capturing times, like having an extra camera, like recording different angles instead of having to record it twice. All that stuff is really adds to the amount of work you're able to put forth at the end of the day. At the time, it seems like everything is good, and then you kind of review your footage, and you're like, shit, like I missed this, I missed that, but it's out, it's live. It's there.
it's out there.
Do you have like any moments where you're just like, damn, I wish I would have done that different? Like,
That's a good question. Do I regret anything that I've posted? If I did, I would have pulled it down. I think there was one video I did that it was a really bad time in AMS2's history where I had a video where I was like really snarky with the voiceover. And I didn't want to have that tone.
like you came off like an asshole kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's not the direction I wanted to go. So I decided at that point to pull the video. And it's funny because somebody called me out on it. They're like, "What happened to your Merc video?" And I was like, "Oh, I said something on there. I would have regretted." So I pulled that, and that was the only time I really regretted something that I had gone through the effort and published. But most of the time, it's you. I know what a good video looks like. Like you are fantastic at your edits.
Oh, thanks, man.
I mean, like I love some of your, that kind of stuff,
Okay, okay.
like
Yeah,
how
thanks, man. I appreciate
it's
that.
really good, and it draws you in. I am the opposite of that. I am sort of like utilitarian with my edits, and for me, it's just keep it simple, stupid. Just and for me, a transition is difficult because you have to, I'm trying to do so much, and like honestly, those default build videos that I put out, like I've already, by the time I'm rendering the video or doing the editing, I've already put in up to 16 hours on that one video
Yep.
with the putting the build together, doing the race for the race footage, doing a time trial to get the setup saved to AMS2, recording the telemetry, doing the data tests for the telemetry, writing the script, and then putting it all together and having it all saved. It's easily 16 hours, and then you got to edit it. And I've had videos scrubbed because the software crashes,
Hmm.
and I'd have to re-edit them, and I
That
can't.
hurts, man.
I know that there's different levels of editing software. Mine's not the greatest. I think it's about 7 years old, so it doesn't have like all the great. It's Power Director 14, man. And it
I
looks
got
like
19 right now.
1980s. Like
Yeah.
if my text on my videos, if I do like a special text, it's like you put in one of those VHS cassette tapes from the 1980s, and it's
Yeah.
And they have like, welcome to Apple, Mac introductions to, DOS. And you
Yeah.
just, it's got that stupid graphic. That's what my graphics look like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't matter for what I'm doing. Like, I think people appreciate the value of what comes at the end of the video and the
The
effort that
information.
goes into it and the telemetry work. I think people appreciate that. So I think they do give me some slack for
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
lack of production quality, because I'm just basically just trying to click transitions. It's all cleaned up.
Yeah.
The audio sounds good. In the can. Go.
You're putting in the work, man. That's what's important. Like,
Yeah.
you're providing information to the people that seek it out. So I think it's really important.
I know what it's going to take to get to the next level, though, and the thing that I don't have is what it's going to take, and that's time. I simply don't have the time.
Okay. Yeah. It's a one of the largest hurdles there is in content creation is how much time do you have to devote to it. You almost have to make it just a full-time job to put enough into it to where you could just like live off of it. But and there's no guarantees, unfortunately.
Right.
It's really a hit and miss thing. And YouTube's algorithm doesn't help how it really caters to people that don't really want meaningful content.
Hey, you know what? When Donk told me about you, I was actually kind of surprised when I found your channel that I had never seen your channel before, and I was kind of disappointed but that speaks exactly to your point. The first couple videos that I clicked on yours, I loved them.
Thanks,
So
man.
I subbed them, and I think this particular series is something that I tried to emulate with my podcast too.
I saw you did those, yeah.
I love long format conversations. I think they're just so much more, informative and inviting and thought provoking than exactly what you're saying. YouTube, they're looking for that quick hit, flashy, flash the tits kind of stuff, and
Yep. How
people
many
go
carrots
for
can
it.
I fit into my mouth? It's like I don't fucking care, man, but I'll watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
clickbaity stuff, it's happening in sim racing too. It's unfortunate that people, it gets the hits. Controversy and drama get the hits. So it's really hard for the guys that are just trying to do an honest, like, educational video without, doing the sassy stuff.
But there is something to be said for if you have a video that people would want to watch once they click on it, maybe it's worth that stupid thumbnail or that stupid title just to get them on there because you have to having a fight for so much attention. But another part of me is still so against it, even though I do participate in I'll put a dumb thumbnail up where
It's part of the marketplace. You have to do it at this point because there's so much going on. There's so much noise going on, and it's so hard to fight the algorithm so that if you have a chance to get on somebody's screen for one time, you're going to want to grab them. And I can understand why people do it. I totally get it. Like, you're trying, if you're trying to be successful at YouTube, you have to be that neon sign on the side of the road that people are driving by at 70 miles an hour. Part of my personality isn't
yeah,
isn't like that. Just like I'm
conformative.
sort of,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sort of like, okay, I'm here if you need me. I'm sort of like that the hardware store
yeah.
at the end of the street.
Home cooking, mom and pop shops.
Yeah, exactly.
It's elevated to the point to where YouTube is not necessarily like a respected platform, but it's respected more so than it used to be. And it's you could be like, oh, I'm a content creator, and people don't laugh in your face anymore. They're like, oh, okay.
Told some of my family members just today that I did YouTube videos, and they were like, "Oh yeah, what's your channel name? How many subscribers you have?" They all and I said 2,000. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's nice." Like, it's not a big number. It's not a small number either. But they don't know what's going on. They're just like, "Oh." The next question is, where did you have time to do this? And I'm like, oh, just no sleep. That's
Fucking
basically
midnight,
it.
till
Yeah.
3 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting 5 hours of sleep at night for the past year. Yeah, that's how this channel came about.
Yeah, it's brutal, and I feel you, man. I pull a lot of all-nighters to get videos out.
I've fallen asleep at the wheel like dozens of times.
Isn't that bullshit, man? Like, some of my dumbest videos, they'll get like 10,000 views, in a week, and then the videos I spend the most time on get like 100 views, and then it dies, and I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck, man.
Yeah.
you're making these digital children, and you're spreading them amongst the world, and then it's like, appreciate my children, and then it hurts, man, sometimes. But
you're like Pablo Picasso painting on the street, and like people walking by, like, what is that? It's Picasso, man.
Yeah.
He's like he's doing a masterpiece right here.
So getting back into sim racing specifically, do you think we're missing anything hardware-wise? Like, is there any untapped markets that you think could become big in the future?
No, like I don't. I honestly, I'm not a tech guy. Like,
Okay.
I watched your video with Bryce or I'm sorry, Byron Bryce, and you guys were talking about this tech stuff, and I was like, I hope he doesn't ask me these questions, man. I have no idea. Like, I am not
Okay.
tech savvy. I'm DDL CL225. Like, okay, great. I just want a pair. I want a pair of load cell pedals.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it'll make me faster on track. That's it.
That strikes me as odd, because I mean, when I think of you and your telemetry videos, I'm like, damn, this guy's like in it,
Oh yeah, so that that's funny. I could do like, if you give me a sim car or a sim setup and I have sim telemetry, I can work with that. You give me like an actual tool with an actual component for an actual car, I will have no clue what to do.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, like I can turn a wrench like anybody else.
Yeah.
But like, you're talking about actually implementing physical stuff, like it's beyond me.
With your feet actually being in the esports space, how exciting was it for you to kind of experience the pandemic and seeing firsthand what the future might be of racing?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic, as awful as it was, one of the benefits was it, gave a lot of guys that, had dreams of racing an opportunity to express that interest in sim racing. And hardcore racing fans probably wouldn't pay sim racing any mind, but you're trapped in a house, for who knows how long, and there's no actual real racing going on. You turn on the TV and they're like, oh wow, those wheels really have what's force feedback? What's that?
Yeah.
Like, you start getting curious, and then I can see why it had a huge growth spurt at that point. Yeah, this relationship between real life racing and sim racing that they play off of each other, they feed off of each other. One helps the other, and vice versa. Bubba Wallace lost a sponsor. Bubba Wallace from NASCAR, he lost a sponsor because of what he did in iRacing, quit a race.
I remember that. There's a lot of self-driving cars, and to me, and I'm sure at least partially to you, it's an unappealing thought, because it's one less thing that we're able to control in our vehicles. It's taking more and more control away from us. And for people that are passionate about driving, it's upsetting, But what do you think about a car that has dual purpose, right? One, obviously for transportation, but the second purpose is you can deactivate all the controls for its purpose of you controlling it in real time, right? So it'll still take you wherever you need to go. You pop in some buttons, and you're like, okay, here's where I want to go. It takes you there. You're just sitting there, and you decide you want to play some sim racing titles on the go, and you got a wheel setup. You got throttle and brake that's not connected to any cables. It's completely separate. Like, it's brake by wire, it's throttle by wire, and the windshield turns into an ultra wide screen.
Okay, yeah.
What about? I mean, would that be exciting?
That's beyond self-driving cars. That's like, you've never driven a car before because you've grown up in an era where all the cars were self-driving. Hey, how about if we give you the experience of driving the car? And people be like, what? But the government doesn't actually want people driving cars again. Could be too dangerous. So they're going to make it like a fake driving. Like, so here you are pretending to drive the car, but you're driving over with mailboxes and stuff. Oh, maybe the car will bump up and down, like as if it's running over things. Like, the suspension will be active, even though it's going straight. Sim driving while driving. While not driving.
Yeah. That's like, it's one of those things like where, they're incorporating more and more games. Like, Tesla is including like game consoles in their cars. Like, you can, I don't know if it's available while you're driving or if it's only when you park.
I don't think it's legal now. I think you can't necessarily it's
You have
sort
to be
of
actively there
you
in the
have to be
vehicle
ready
still.
and focused. Yeah.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing that I've come across with the self-driving car concept is the AI that has to determine what to do with the car in those, those situations that you never want to come across as a driver.
Yeah.
You're in your family car driving down and you're going too fast. Maybe you're going too fast. Maybe you're going, you're within the speed limit. That's not the point. The point is there's a person in front of your car or a
Hmm.
wall. What do you do as a driver? Like, and you have
Yeah.
kids in the back,
Yeah. You'd
and you're going
prioritize
60
like
miles.
hitting the
Like the
person. Yeah.
decision you have to make,
Yeah.
they actually have to program that. Like, there has to be
Yeah.
somebody trying to decide. And then imagine if you're the person that gets hit,
Yeah.
you're going to sue Tesla
Yeah.
because they had to program the car to hit you
That's a
instead
good,
of
that's a
hit the
good,
wall. And
that's
then what
kind of
about
dark,
you and
but
your family?
yeah.
Say you survive and, God forbid, one of your family members gets hurt or killed,
Mm.
you're going to sue Tesla. Be like, you programmed the car to hit a wall and not spare my
Yeah.
family? Your idea is pretty cool too. That's actually not too far away, to be honest. I can envision someone wanting to play video games while they're on a long trip, and say, for example, it's legal to have complete, let the car take 100% control. You can sleep if you want to.
It could actually be used as a tool to keep the person alert and aware too. Because I mean, like at any point, if danger comes, it could be replaced, and and
Oh
it'll.
my God, you're gonna jump scare somebody like
You'd be like,
that?
oh shit! But I mean, it would be better than like
Tractor
letting someone
trailer,
just
large Marge
yeah
is heading right towards you.
yeah. If you had that cross compatibility, like with your sim rig, you can take that wheel off that and pop it on your real
Yeah.
car for different
You can imagine.
experiences.
Honey, I told you to bring the F1, not the
Yeah.
GT rim. I don't have
Yeah.
the buttons, honey.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the problems we're going to face in the future of sim racing, It'd be a great way to merge the two worlds because no matter what, I think until we get to the point to where we literally don't have to leave our homes, which is probably in the near future, with delivery services and robots delivering your food and things like that, and working from home, once the value of a person becomes less in terms of more jobs can be replaced with robots and AI, our primary function will be to consume. Like what we're doing right now, like we don't have to be in the same place to get this experience.
Yeah.
There are a lot of negative aspects about it, but I'm just saying like in the future, as we become more and more dependent on machinery and computers, AI and everything like that, transportation is going to become less important. In the old days, your rite of passage was kind of like a vehicle and getting a driver's license so you could go out and do what you want with your life and experience freedom, and now it's.
Oh, you don't think it would be just pure entertainment? Like, I think transportation nowadays is mostly just driving to work. It's commute, right?
Yeah.
You have to get out of the house, though, right? I don't know. People do want to travel.
I'm thinking it'll come to the point to where virtual reality and virtual space will become so convincing that people will not
okay.
crave that as much.
I've thought about that. It's hard to say what it's going to look like when it gets here, but I picture it as sort of like a glacier coming,
Yeah.
and it gets 50 yards closer every year,
I was thinking about this a little while ago. When you think back to like Gran Turismo 1, Gran Turismo 2, whatever, certain perspectives like the hood cam, it wasn't necessarily realistic. It was trying to emulate a camera, and then you saw like the HUD, right? Like you had your lap times, you had your RPMs, the speed you're going, all that kind of stuff. I used to hate that stuff because I felt like it was taking me out of the moment. I didn't feel like it was anywhere close to real. And it's kind of funny how nowadays real race cars have heads-up displays, and they're able to display it on the windshield.
Right, yeah.
They're able to display it on a screen.
The rear view mirror, the rear view camera.
Yeah, all that stuff. I'm like, man, this is so unrealistic. And now it's reversed. Now it's like you can put that stuff on the screen and accept it as reality. And it's kind of crazy how maybe it didn't necessarily predict that was going to be the future, but it's just kind of funny how everything that you can pretty much think of in my opinion, can eventually become the future.
Well, I was watching a documentary recently with Michael Fassbender. I think he was in 300 Spartans too.
Oh,
He had a
yeah,
small
300
role
is
in that.
badass.
Yeah,
I
that
love
was.
that movie.
I do too.
Yeah,
My wife
mind
would
blowing.
never let me watch it again,
Is it too
unless I'm
many?
by myself. He's doing endurance racing in the European Endurance Racing Championships. I don't know if you know that much about endurance racing, but they have professional drivers and then they have gentleman drivers or amateurs that like people that have to buy in to get into their seat. So a
Oh,
lot of the
okay.
times that it'll be the same car driving 24 hours. Two of the drivers or three of the drivers will be professional, but you have to have at least one amateur non-professional driver in the seat of this high performance car for a certain period of time.
That seems like
So,
they'd have some loopholes and be like, this guy's amateur.
well, they have to get licensed that they're not dangerous on track.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but so a lot of the team's success is based on that one weak link, I guess, and getting them faster. So the documentary on YouTube, it's fascinating. It's called Road to Le Mans. It's Porsche. It's on their YouTube channel, and there's 3 seasons. And the reason why I brought it up is because I think it's really fascinating watch if you're interested in sim racing. And when you were saying like the camera modes, well, his camera inside the Porsche RSR is a video camera. It's about that big. And what I was noticing was there was like little flashing arrows and green arrows and flat like to tell him where cars were,
Oh, okay.
like proximity indicators on the camera for his rear view because they didn't have a rear view mirror.
Yeah.
So he just basically had the rear view camera, but they'd have like these little flashing symbols to show
Huh.
where the cars were around him. And I thought that was fantastic. It
Yeah.
looked sim racy to me. It looked like a really cheap proximity indicator like the one that AMS2 has, as opposed to the ACC one where they show you like
Yeah, the exact, yeah,
the uh,
yeah, how it shifts
the
around.
the
Yeah.
helicopter view,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how they are.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty neat. I was like, that's Simcade.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not realistic.
Yeah, you got to turn off the assist,
Yeah, you
man.
got to
Yeah.
turn off that
Yeah.
proxy indicator, Mike.
Yeah.
That's Simcade, bro.
How do you feel about like transmissions that are emulating gear changes when they're not actually really doing that, like in real life?
Like if you're driving an electric car, like it'll emulate the
Um,
movement of like a gear shifting.
what is it? The continuously variable transmission, I think.
Hmm.
And at one point, it was really off-putting to the consumers because they felt like they weren't getting as much out of their engine because it was too smooth of a transition. There was no physical feeling of gear changes because it was just continuously variable, like, right? So
Okay.
you get the most out of your transmission and the most out of your engine, but because it didn't have that
I can
feedback.
see where that would be creepy. I
Yeah.
can see if you get in the car and it's just like, and there's no like,
Yeah,
yeah, that would be weird.
because you're
Because
so
we're so
used to
used
it.
to
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
That reminds me of another story about another problem that they have with electric cars, and I think it's
that they're boring.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, they're trying to make performance electric cars
yeah.
now. Ford, why? The Ford Mustang. I don't know how much money they're spending. They're spending a lot of money trying to figure out how to get the electric cars to sound like
Mhm.
real cars.
Yep,
You've heard that?
yep. And then all
So
these
they're gonna
fake
have like a
noises.
fake
Yeah,
audio that
yeah,
makes it feel like you're in a real car. Like how can you can simulate a V8 engine like revving up to the limiter when you're driving.
it's cringy.
It is really.
I,
I
I
just feel like I can't live in a scenario. Oh, that would reminds me of that guy in the Matrix. What's his name? The guy that ate the steak. Cypher.
he wasn't he a comedian?
The guy that ate the steak. He's like, I
Yeah,
don't care if
yeah.
I'm
It's
in
like
that.
this tastes so
I don't care if
good.
this
Yeah,
steak is
yeah,
real or not. Yeah,
yeah,
his name was Cypher. That's that guy. He's like,
yeah,
I don't care if it's electric car as long as it sounds good. Like he doesn't care if it's real or
yeah.
not.
It's a certain type of person that
That
appreciates
rumble of
that.
that,
Yeah,
the
I
the
mean,
audio system.
in a way, we can relate to that because we're not even in a car and we're replicating engine noises. So when I think about it,
What, as sim racers?
yeah, like because we're trying to emulate a gasoline powered engine with all
Yeah.
electronic stuff,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
with sound, with feel, with
I see what you're saying.
imagery. But yeah, when it's on the road, it's like a different beast. Playing engine noises through the speakers to make people think that they have more performance in their cars. That's cringy to me. It does have practical use to monitor your RPMs. You know, like in a racing situation, I can imagine like if you have a quiet exhaust, right? Especially if you have a helmet
I
on.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I have two different cars, one with a loud exhaust and the other with a really loud exhaust. And with a helmet on, it's like straight piped. You know, with a helmet on, I can hear the straight piped one and monitor like where I'm at. You know, with vibration and with
Right.
with sound. You know. With the other car, when I have a helmet on, it's a little bit more ambiguous.
I can't imagine trying to drive like a car in a sim racing scenario without the audio of
Yeah,
the rev.
yeah, yeah,
If it went silent, I'd be lost.
yeah.
That means you'd have to look at the rev limiter. If it doesn't have like a really annoying like a
Hard
rev
limiter.
limiter,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, then I'll catch myself when it's at 3 a.m. I'll catch myself going down.
yeah. Just hammering that limiter. Yeah,
Yeah, just second gear, man. Just seeing how fast you can go.
yeah. But yeah, I do see the practical use of having like sound piped into the vehicle either through speakers or through like sound chambers, like they're doing that. But yeah, like I really don't like that either.
The next generations are really gonna like our kids
Yeah, they're going to
are
be
going
way
to be
more
making the
accepting.
decisions
Yeah.
about this than we are, and it's something. These types of changes don't happen overnight, and we're going to be that grumpy old man.
We're the old heads.
I
Yeah.
remember the cars had real sound, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
Grandpa. They used gas too, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
That's
Fossil
what we're.
fuel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, appropriate. I'm already getting to that point, and I'm catching myself. Like I'm like, damn, I'm that person that is unaccepting of change in a lot of ways, or not unaccepting, but hesitant. You know, I'm like, I don't know about that. You know, but someone new to the scene that has no previous experience is just like, this is what it is, and I like it. You know, and there's a lot to be said about that, and being naive and just not having the exposure is almost a blessing in a lot of ways to accepting change and accepting the future.
There's something that AMS2 does really, really well, and that's the vintage
Yeah,
kind of
I've heard
racing.
that. Yeah.
And they have the Corvette C3R 1972, circa 1972 or something like that. And if you look it up on Google, the car is an absolute monster.
Mm.
And I grew up with racing, and it was one of those things that struck a nostalgic tone with me. But I would really be sad to know, like, if my kids never, like, if they didn't like, even if it was just sim racing,
Yeah.
like, if they never had known, like, there were just like you could think of them as dinosaurs. They're old cars, they're old technology, they're dinosaurs, but dinosaurs are freaking monsters, man.
Yeah. And we need to preserve
Like,
them.
that C3R is a monster. When I drove that car, I was like, how do people drive this thing? It's unsafe. It's unsafe.
Yeah.
Somebody has to break a horse. Somebody has to drive something that's out of control. Like, it's sort of an instinct of man. So I think what's going to save us is, I know the electric cars are, everyone who's made them popular are all sort of save the environment, EPA, Toyota hybrid, like that kind, or not. What's the name of the Toyota one? Toyota Prius. The people that are going to save the electric car industry are the guys that are going to want performance out of the cars in some way, shape, or form. It's not all going to be driven by environmental factors. The
Yeah.
people that are going to drive the market are going to be the consumers that want performance out of those electric cars.
You need
So
excitement.
we're going to see something about it.
Yeah.
It's going to be something space age and cool.
Yeah.
We're not going to get the rumble
Yeah.
unless it's fake,
Yeah,
but
it's upsetting.
there's no like electric engines have unlimited torque.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
They're
Yeah.
going to get fatter tires and they're just going to be rocket ships,
Yeah.
man. The specific mid battery design is making it so that they can corner better than the front batteried American Chevrolet.
Yeah. You would sound like a 1930s ad, but like in the
Yeah.
future.
Oh, the Chevrolet.
Yeah.
Come drive the Chevrolet, guy.
I think you'd
Yeah.
actually be really interested in the next SIMterview I'm releasing. A casual sim racer is his name. He has a modding company that he started that focuses 100% on vintage vehicles and
Really?
yeah, like 1800s.
I saw one of my friends on Discord told me about a mod of, 1910 race cars. The ones that look like World War One fighter planes without the wings,
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and the guys are sitting up high with
yeah,
a wheel like this big
and a leather helmet.
and a leather helmet
Yeah.
and no seatbelt.
No lumbar
Yeah.
support.
No, and they're on a seat with springs.
Yeah, no suspension. Yeah, it's just like straight fucking wheel asphalt, like it's like wooden wheels and shit.
But the engine is 10 feet long,
Yeah, and it's just like a fucking monster. Yeah,
and the wheels are this wide.
yeah,
they're
no
wood.
traction. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, but that's progression, man. Like we look back on that, and we're like, damn, who drove that shit? Talking about endurance racing. I know this is kind of getting away from sim racing, but keeping the internal combustion engine relevant. Toyota's developed the hydrogen combustion engine. You check that out?
So this is just like burning hydrogen
Yeah.
gas,
And
As a
the
fuel
result
source.
is
zero emissions.
drinkable water out of the exhaust.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So it's combusting. The gist of it is they use larger spark plugs, higher compression. Obviously, you need a high pressure fuel cell.
A Brita filter.
Yeah, there was one other factor, but it's an adaptable technology. You can convert your gasoline engine to hydrogen combustion, have all the sound, have all the same
Yeah.
parts. It doesn't kill the aftermarket industry. They entered an endurance race, a 24-hour endurance race.
Is it run on liquid hydrogen?
Hydrogen gas, I think, high pressure hydrogen gas.
That's how I thought that why they didn't use hydrogens because it's very volatile and explosive. Like you wouldn't.
That's one of the things about it. It's like when you think about a regular vehicle on the road, we're so used to it. We're not taking into account that there's thousands of explosions happening right in front of us. There's a gas
That's
tank
true.
full of highly flammable fuel, and it's similar safety hazards, And
Okay. Well,
even,
as long as it's safe, yeah, sure, that'd be pretty cool to see.
yeah, I mean, there's going to be some hiccups in it that they need to figure out, but it's not mainstream yet. But just the idea that we don't have to get rid of the internal combustion engine, we can keep all the sensation of the high revving, like
Yeah.
that's really appealing. Like we were talking about how important sound is to the experience when you're in a
Well,
Tesla.
it's actually even better than electric cars too, in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, because electric cars are really kind of outsourcing the pollution.
Yeah, and they
So-
have their own safety hazards. Lithium. And the fact that your batteries can become unstable and you're fucking just a car fire out of nowhere, like that happens, People's cars start burning while they're driving them,
What do you think about the Formula E?
We're kind of in its infancy in terms of how exciting it is.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
Yeah.
There's going to be a changing of the guard. It's that transition from people not being used to having the gear shifts
Yeah.
to the ones that are used to not having gear shifts. So there's going to be that transition period, and we'll see that in our lifetime, I'm sure.
WRC and Rallycross is moving towards it too. Full electric cars in Rallycross, and they're also testing hybrid vehicles in Rally.
They're getting rid of regular cars too fast. Like that's all this seems to be promoting is this electric cars. I don't know where they're getting all these battery materials, man. I think at some point there's going to have to be some standardization like for batteries for cars. I really do, because if you really wanted to, the one thing is like if you ran out of juice and you're on the road, like a tank of kerosene for your grill. Like
Yeah.
you drop off the empty one, you pick up a full one. You know
You,
what I mean?
you don't talk about propane?
Oh, did I say kerosene? I meant propane.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
that's a fossil fuel. Kerosene, like that's some that's some, that's some shit you see in an oil
Drop
lamp
off
or
some
something.
butane
Yeah,
from
there you go. There you go.
your grill. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I use a butane
yeah.
grill. Ooh, okay. No, I meant propane. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point you brought up. Like I was saying,
So you wouldn't have
like
to have a charging station.
yeah, the
You would
double A
charge.
of car batteries, like the standardization, like you can
It
go
might
and
be
buy it.
it might be huge,
Yeah,
and you
like
might have to hit a
maybe something
crane to
like this.
pull it out.
You know, just to get you an extra 100 miles or something like that, just or 50 miles to get you where
Or
you
like
need to
have a
go.
slot that you can just plug something in emergency in and pull it out. Like just like you can
Yeah.
have the regular car battery. Yeah, that'll be that's coming, I'm sure.
How do you feel about standardization in sim racing? Do you think it needs to happen? Like get rid of proprietary connections.
No, I think that's I'm also like a market guy. I think the market dictates right or wrong. If a company makes a good product, eventually it comes out. Like we all know, Feld is a great set of pedals. It's just cost prohibitive. And we all know that Logitech makes some decent, really low entry level products. In between the markets, I think I remember you talking about this. You talking about like being able to interchange rims and things like that. I think that's all. It's got to be software driven. I think the game developing companies have to figure that out for the players. I'm tired of hearing about someone that has like a pair of pedals and they plug it into the game, and they have say they have a drive that's a different manufacturer, and the game doesn't recognize
Mm,
that one at the same
yeah,
time.
that's
Like, and then you have
frustrating.
to do some other thing. I think in the software level, but I don't think there's going to be or should be anybody that comes in and swoops in and just changes, like say, oh, you all have to do the same thing. I don't think there's anyone in the place to even do that. So basically, we're going to have to decide for ourselves and do a little homework and research and figure out what's right for us. So I'm really happy with Thrustmaster, and I'm not a paid spokesman for it. I got the rig that I have. It's a T300 with a T3 PA pedals. I don't use the conical mod. I basically cut.
I actually preferred the conical mod.
I took it out. This is a squash ball.
Yeah, yeah.
I cut it in half. That's my spare. I had a can of four, so I cut it in half, and I stick this behind my pedal
Okay.
as opposed to the conical mod. That's my brake feel right there, bud.
There you go, man.
So now you know why I need load cells. I haven't moved to Tupperware just yet either,
Um,
or cardboard.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you saw that one, huh?
Yep, I loved it.
Getting pretty up there in the time. It's going to be a nightmare to edit.
Yeah, I figure you're gonna probably edit like a good hour out of there. We're just going off about space
Yeah.
and stuff,
No,
man.
I mean, I like that kind of stuff. It's
No,
not.
me too.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stop you.